Hi, I'm Nejat Doğan from the Department of International Relations at Anadolu University, and thank you for joining me today in this video. And today's topic is globalization and global society. In this chapter, we'll be looking at such issues as making sense of globalization, impact of globalization, some serious consequences of globalization, the anti-globalization movement, and the globalization and nation states. In fact, there are three main approaches to globalization. The first one is hyper-globalists, and they argue that globalization is a revolutionary shift in technology, economy, and culture. And from this perspective, globalization is real and it is new. However, skeptics argue against this, and they say much of the argument about globalization, in fact, is exaggerated, and the world is not experiencing entirely a new phase. So globalization is a myth from this perspective. However, transformationalists maybe fall in between hyperglobalists and skeptics, and they argue that we observe some unprecedented social and economic changes, and even though not everything is changing in the world, however, globalization is really a powerful force. And next, we turn to the main drivers of globalization in the textbook, and we will be talking about such issues as technological change and the economic logic of capitalism, as well as the politics, which means ideas, interests, and power in international relations. And the chapter then moves on to reviewing some new actors in world politics. And these actors are intergovernmental organizations, non-governmental organizations, and multinational or transnational corporations. And the chapter, in fact, is broken into three main sections. Those are globalization of economy, globalization of migration, and the rise of regions. Let's review the globalization of economy first of all. And many people observe interdependency between states. And this interdependency, in fact, is going together with increasing trade volumes. And the number of multinational corporations in the international system increased significantly since 1945. And today, in fact, only 30 out of 100 world's top economies are states, which means that 70 out of the top 100 economies are now corporations, multinational corporations. And in fact, today in the system, we also observe uncontrollable flow of currency and capital. We also observe the development of communication and information technologies in the system. These are all good. However, they brought also new risks to states. States are now vulnerable to economic crises. And the chapter next moves to globalization of migration. We will be talking about the increasing number of international migrants. And in fact, unfortunately, more than half of these migrants today are women. And the number of refugees today also reached to about 22 million people. And maybe interestingly, Turkey is one of the top countries of asylum, which means that the asylum seekers coming to Turkey bigger and bigger numbers every day. And the chapter is talking about the United Nations High Commissioner of Refugees as the main international organization dealing with the refugee crisis in the international system. And in today's global society and global economy, we also observe the rise of regions, and the chapter looks at especially Americas, Africa, and Asia, and we review some specific organizations such as the Common Market of the South, NAFTA, which is North American Free Trade Agreement, and the Economic Community of West African States, the African Union, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, the Commonwealth of Independent States, and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. The chapter then moves on to looking at some serious consequences of globalization. And it closely looks at poverty, environmental degradation, and globalization of terrorism. And the chapter moves to anti-globalization movement, in fact, which started at the end of the 1990s. The first instance, in fact, occurred in 1999 in Seattle, which is referred to as the Battle of Seattle. And the movement used especially the communication revolution very well, such as the internet and the cell phones. And after the Battle of Seattle, we observed Occupy demonstrations around the world, especially starting in the United States. It started at Wall Street, New York. However, in a very short period of time, it spread to such cities as Boston, Chicago, Denver, Los Angeles, and San Francisco. All this said, we now are ready to talk about a shrinking world. All these transformations and developments, in fact, have resulted in a shrinking world, which means now the distinction between the local and global dissolves. And the chapter looks at the effects of this, in fact, on the traditional characteristics of states. Now, states are maybe not declining or disappearing, but certainly now they are undergoing a complete transformation, and they are now sharing power with emerging actors. And this wraps up our video today on globalization and global society. You take care. Bye-bye.